It's just not like her. She would have called.
Police have never identified a suspect.
Does that mean you found her?
Was she just a random victim? It's a horrifying nightmare that I wake up to every morning.
Such a beautiful person.
You always meet the zombie hunter first, then Brian.
No one in this case has a good alibi.
You basically see your destination just by looking down the street.
"19-year-old Adrienne Salinas vanished on June 15, 2013. Her body found in the desert months later. Police say her disappearance and possibly her murder happened somewhere between her apartment and a gas station in Tempe, a quarter-mile apart. Police reports, phone records, and videos exclusively obtained by 12 News provide new insight into that night and the discovery of her body found 30 miles away from her home. And while her murder remains unsolved, for the first time, police detail their investigation, persons of interest, and evidence that may finally lead to answers. It's an area that looks much like most neighborhoods in Phoenix: homes, apartments, a park. An area of Tempe, right down the street from Arizona State University. And in the middle of it, this mural. It's called "Don't Wake the Dreamer," a young woman dreaming, laying in a field. Adrienne Salinas lived right down the street. She would have walked by this mural if she had lived to see it. The mural's not about Adrienne Salinas. The artist said she painted it because people come here to Tempe, a college town, dreaming of what they'll become. Adrienne had just moved to Tempe with a lifetime full of dreams ahead of her, dreams that she never got to realize. All she wanted the night she disappeared was a ride, and all she had to do to get it was walk a quarter mile. Everyone talks about the smile. She has it, almost beaming, in every single photo, without exception. Her friends described her as one of the nicest, sweetest people they'd ever met. In hundreds of pages of interviews, the worst thing anyone ever said about Adrienne Salinas was that she lost her phone a lot. People described her as nice, soft-spoken, easy to talk to. Just look at her. How could anything bad happen to a person who is this happy? But she was private, kept to herself. She only had a handful of really good friends. They'd all gone to high school together at Arcadia High. Shani Duggan and Rebecca Flores were her roommates, and Francisco Arteaga, Fran. Fran was complicated. They'd known each other since 8th grade. They were together all the time. Adrienne slept at Fran's house. They were boyfriend and girlfriend in everything but the label. Fran would later say it was like an open relationship, but her friends would say Adrienne wanted the label, or at least wanted to know if it was coming.
She's never been interested in anyone else. If we go out to parties and stuff, like, she's obviously a really pretty girl. She gets hit on, but she's never been interested in, like, you know, making out with anyone or floating back. She doesn't really have her eyes set on anyone else besides Fran.
She doesn't. Like, when we go out to parties and stuff,
and we're trying to, like,
there's a group of guys, let's go talk to them. She's just, like, disinterested.
Adrienne had a job, but she hadn't been able to work for a while. She'd come down with valley fever, a disease from the Arizona desert that gets into your lungs. She'd been hospitalized for lung surgery and was still recovering. She was where a lot of people are at 19, on her own, trying to figure out what she was going to do, what this thing with Fran was. Adrienne was out on her own for the first time, living in this Tempe apartment with her two friends. And it was here where her friends saw her for the last time. It was early in the morning on June 15th. There was a party at Adrienne's apartment. Fran was there, her roommates, and there was drinking. And Adrienne's frustrations with him were coming to a head. Police say she thought Fran wasn't paying enough attention to her. Detective Alan Akey with Tempe Police has been the lead investigator since the beginning.
40 to 41 people attending, and he became interested in other females at the party, so Adrienne herself was upset about that, and from there they decided to go back to Fran's residence, which is in Scottsdale.
But Adrienne didn't stay at Fran's for long. According to Fran, Adrienne left his apartment around 3 a.m. and started walking home.
Fran follows her in his vehicle, says, "Let me just give you a ride." She agrees, gets in his car, comes back down to Tempe. They're in the area of Rio Salado, Mill Avenue, you know, busy area. So vehicles, traffic, if you will. She gets out, says, "I'll walk the rest of the way." Fran calls over to her roommates, Rebecca and Shani, says, "Hey, she's walking. Can you guys check up on her?"
She just got out of the car in the middle of the conversation. She just hopped out without saying anything.
Her roommates told police Adrienne came back to the party, but was still upset and didn't want to stay. At some point, she got into her car and drove away.
Some of the partygoers see her. They're kind of trying to stop her because she had been drinking that night. Try to stop her, but she's already in their car and drives away.
In police interviews, people at the party said Adrienne was upset and emotional, but most of them never seemed to notice she was even there. One guy said she stormed off and peeled out in her car.
We get a call for service from a Starbucks employee who says, hey, there's this car that's just driving erratically on First Street, and it just passed me, and then it hits the curve at First and Ash, and the tires blew out, and then the driver took off.
That's down by the park, right?
Yeah, right on that curve.
They were going around the curb and hit something and then just had 2 flat tires.
That may have been the last chance for police to talk to Adrienne. Officers wouldn't find the car when they arrived, but they believe she was behind the wheel.
The vehicle plate that the caller, it matched Adrienne's car. So we knew that was likely Adrienne.
With 2 blown tires, Adrienne kept driving, but abandoned her car a few blocks from the apartment. Adrienne's roommates said she came back to the party a 3rd time and said she was going back to Fran's again. She texted Fran at 4:43 a.m., I'm coming over. 10 minutes later, Adrienne calls for a cab.
Makes contact with a cab company to arrange to meet at the AM/PM, which is at Hardy and University.
The cab driver arrives at the AM/PM, but Adrienne never does.
She never shows up there. We never see her on video there. The driver says she didn't show up.
She says, well, get her as soon as you can. She's obviously upset. So he takes off to go get her, but that's a 25-minute drive from where he was to where she was. He pulls into the gas station, looks around, doesn't see her, calls her, and proceeds to step out in the car and have a smoke, and is never able to get a hold of her.
This is the part of the story that's hard to explain, and even harder to understand once it is explained. Why would Adrienne call a cab to meet her anywhere but her house? Why that gas station? Why a quarter mile away? Why wouldn't she just call the cab and have it meet her at her front door? Why did she need to walk?
She would have been embarrassed by the collision, embarrassed by everything that was going on, and wouldn't want, because they would have said, well, why do you have a cab coming here? Oh, my car's wrecked, right around the corner.
Yeah.
So she wouldn't want to answer that question to her friends.
By 5:07, her phone is either dead or turned off. Adrienne is missing, but police and the public won't know that for nearly 36 hours.
We don't get a call until Sunday from her father, Rick, because it's Father's Day, saying, hey, my daughter hasn't reached out to me.
It's just not like her. She would have called. She's not answering her texts. The phone, it still goes to her voicemail.
It's not uncommon for somebody to not be in touch with their family, if you will. And
it's not illegal for somebody to just disappear.
Right.
But this was different. Adrienne's car was wrecked. Her phone was shut off. No one knew where she was for a full day. Her dad, Rick, and boyfriend, Fran, go looking for Adrienne. They find her car with the 2 blown tires. Police impound it, search it, but don't find anything.
So we have the vehicle, we have her clothes, but we don't know where she's at that point. So the last place we can put her is in her apartment because her clothes are there.
My thoughts are scattered. It's more of physical pain now, the torture, the living hell that I'm going through right now because of not knowing. And then the possibilities of her being in a harmful situation flash through my mind.
It's very hard, very, very hard on all of us, not to know where she's at, not to know what she's going through. She just disappeared in the air.
It's devastating for myself and the family. It's just my whole world's turned upside down, and it's a horrifying nightmare that I wake up to every morning, not knowing where my baby girl's at. For Christ's sake, let us give us some information on what. If somebody did see something, somebody knows something, just to please come forward with any information so they can just put the pieces together and figure out what is actually taking place.
Tempe PD heightens their investigation. They look at what's normal behavior for Adrienne. None of what happened is normal.
It sounds like she would always go with a friend and always be with somebody, just not somebody that would just randomly take a walk by themselves.
Investigation continues for months. Police search the neighborhood and find no trace.
There is a lot of things happening. We're just waiting for a breakthrough, for a good solid lead.
A good solid lead never comes.
Breaking news now, a body discovered in Apache Junction. Tempe police are there. We have Sky 12 over the scene.
We saw flooding that we haven't seen in years. So at that time, the water really went everywhere.
When the water receded, Adrienne's body was found 30 miles away in Apache Junction near the Superstition Mountains.
They had a large storm that neighbors in that area described 6 foot of rushing water.
The way we found Adrienne, it was very hard to determine the cause of death. We are waiting for the medical examiner's office.
Can you say whether or not all of her body was found?
No, I can't say that.
The remains had been in the elements for a long time. They were mummified, mostly just bones.
I said, she's gone, isn't she? And she goes, yes, she's in God's hands. I dropped the phone. And I just screamed, why? She didn't deserve it. She was an amazing, beautiful, loving, giving person. And I don't know what monster would just throw her out there.
Police dug into a lot of leads, all 40 people at the party, her last contact, the boyfriend she fought with.
It's still hard going to sleep at night, just not knowing what happened.
The last person she called, the cab driver.
Does that mean you found her? I hope you did.
And years later, police cast an even wider net.
We've had many cases of homicides, of serial killers in this country who have done similar things.
No one in this case has a good alibi.
True crime fans, stay in the know. Sign up for the free True Crime Network streaming account. Get updates on new series and save viewing history, all for free. Sign up today.
I said, she's gone, isn't she? And she goes, yes, she's in God's hands.
Can you say whether or not all of her body was found?
No, I can't say that.
Adrienne's remains were taken to the medical examiner. The remains were mummified. Scars on her bones matched those from her surgery for valley fever, leading officers to believe it could be Adrienne. And a DNA test confirmed she had been found, but there was no mention at all of her head or hands. There's no cause of death listed, no manner of death either. Not even a location of death, just a place where the body was found. Adrienne was missing for more than 2 months, and cops can't even say whether or not she was alive during that time. They don't even know when she was killed.
For an investigator, we don't have a true crime scene. And that's it. A crime scene gives us a lot of evidence and information.
Detective Akey went back to the beginning. The night of the party, 40 people were there. Not one of them says they saw what happened to Adrienne that night.
So we've interviewed all the occupants or all the people who have been in the apartment. Maybe there's somebody that was attending the party that took an interest in an intoxicated female. You know how that dynamic works. And there's a possibility that it escalated and got out of control.
I was the last one to see her drive off.
Shani Duggan and Rebecca Flores talked to police a few days later. They both said they had no idea where Adrienne was, but that she would not have run off on her own.
She went upstairs, and that's the last I saw her, because I was, going to let her hang out with other people at the party. She's aware that we've talked about how she could, our sick joke of how she could easily get stolen into a car and shit. She would not just go away.
She was just caught up in seeing Fran, I think. I really think that she was just determined to be there. When she couldn't get a hold of him, she got livid and was just like, I'm driving over there.
I tried to talk to Shani, and for a while it seemed like she would do an interview, but I was never able to talk to her about that night. We've been unable to find Rebecca Flores. After the roommates, police turned their attention to Fran.
I live through it every day, honestly.
The percentages of some random occurrence happening are very low. So the percentage of a stranger abduction and murder is so much lower than somebody who's involved with somebody and has a motive, if you will, and has that passion of something's going on between the two of them that would create that. So statistically, it would be somebody that knew her or was closer to her.
Adrienne was in Fran's car more than once. People at the party told police they got in a fight that night over whether or not they were boyfriend and girlfriend. Fran later told the cops that they had grown apart and weren't serious anymore. But police believe Adrienne was upset and heading to his house.
Hello?
Francisco.
Yes?
This is Detective Akey. How's things going?
Okay.
All right. Have you heard any word or anything?
No, nothing new.
Police stayed in touch with Fran for years. We obtained multiple recordings of those interviews.
Let me ask you this. Would you do anything to find her?
Huh?
Would you do anything?
Oh yeah, I've been doing everything. I've been in Tempe passing out flyers 2 times a day before and after work.
Police also interviewed Fran's roommates, who said they saw him at home sometime between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. without Adrienne. The next morning, they found Fran asleep. When he couldn't get a hold of Adrienne the next day, his roommates told police he was beside himself, crying, passing out flyers. Detective Akey's reports say it appeared the roommate's story was genuine, not like they were trying to cover for Fran.
See, I will never use the word rule out.
Okay.
We have interviewed him, extensively, and we've investigated. I know a lot of times people like to, rule out or whatnot, but no. Is he a suspect? No. But he's not. No one is ruled out.
We've made contact with Fran. He still lives in the area, but he doesn't want to talk about Adrienne. He says he's done interviews for years, and he says nothing has ever come of it. He told us he's glad we're doing this project, but doesn't want to be a part of it.
He's been cooperative, and he's the way I've described Fran is if I called him right now and said, "Hey, I'm working the case. I need you to show up. I need you to do A, B, and Z," he would come in and do A, B, and Z without hesitation.
Setting aside the boyfriend, partygoers, the roommates, police were running out of leads. They turned to the cab company. The night she disappeared, Adrienne called a cab company called Scottsdale Cab Guy. The driver was Tom Simon Jr., the company owned by Tom Simon Sr., his father.
Adrienne, we believe, makes contact with a cab company to arrange to meet at the AM/PM, which is at Hardy and University. She never shows up there. We never see her on video there. The driver says she didn't show up.
2 days after Adrienne disappeared, Tempe police called Tom Simon Jr. and Sr. on a conference call. Tom Simon Jr. was driving his cab to the Grand Canyon with passengers in the back. Tom Simon Sr. was back in the valley. According to a woman who later said she was the passenger, the conversation scared her. That woman told police she thought Tom Simon Jr. was an odd guy. He told her he was the last person to have contact with Adrienne, but couldn't remember if he was the one who was supposed to pick her up. The passenger thought it was a weird conversation to have, but not as weird as what happened after. Stopping in Sedona, the passenger said Tom Simon Jr. popped the trunk and pulled out a hacksaw, wondering how it got in there. The passenger said she and her husband thought they might be in danger. 2 days later, Tempe police put Tom Simon Jr. under surveillance. That's when the police report says Tom Simon Jr. started conducting heat runs, making erratic turns, like he was looking to see if he was being followed. They followed him for 3 hours until they lost him in a parking lot.
There we go. Hi, Tom. How you doing?
On June 25th, Detective Akey went to Tom Simon Jr.'s house to try and get him to take a polygraph.
Can we just knock that out? I can give you a ride.
I don't want to do it, man.
Why is that? Why wouldn't you want to?
Because I don't trust those things. I don't know. The lawyer said not to.
What lawyer?
I personally don't care. I just, the lawyer said not to because, and not to talk to you guys anymore.
And not to talk to us?
Yeah, because you're really hassling me at this point.
No.
I was a hard worker. A lady called me. I went there. She wasn't there. End of story. If you guys don't believe it, go get a warrant. Take me to jail.
Police went farther with Tom Simon Jr. than anyone else in the case. 2 days after that interview, they did get a warrant for Tom Simon Jr.'s cab, apartment, and DNA. Police searched his cab and found nothing, no trace evidence. He was acting bizarrely, then angrily.
Have a seat.
Now you want to hurt
We
me?
have an
You're
order.
pushing on
We
my
have an order.
chest.
I just need you to have a seat.
Can you take the handcuffs off, please? I'm not allowed to have fun, man? You said to relax. I was relaxing. That's how I relax.
First, we're going to de-escalate everything.
Everything is de-escalated, but you got to
And then we're gonna let you
pull
get
the guy
dressed.
out, embarrassed him in front of his neighbors.
Then
for
we're
no
gonna let
reason.
you get
How are you
dressed.
guys going to fix that after this?
Okay.
How are you
going
going to fix my life after this?
All right. You need to have a seat right over here. This is an order that we have. Okay. We're going to obtain buckle swabs from you.
The hell is buckle swabs?
And basically, we're going to take a DNA sample from you, from your mouth.
Why do you have to do that?
Because we have an order to do that. Okay?
Which means that...
Which means that...
I don't care, man. Do whatever you gotta do. You guys are treating me like a criminal, and I'm
Absolutely
not.
not.
You are too.
Absolutely not.
Can you please stay in here?
What's going on?
Man, you guys are treating me like shit, dude. All I do is drive a taxi, and you guys have put handcuffs on me. You've taken me from my house. This isn't right, man.
We're just executing an
Why
order.
did you let them do this to me?
We're just executing an order.
You guys know darn well. You guys even said that you saw it on the tape that I was there and the girl wasn't there. Why are you doing this? To satisfy the family? Just to check every avenue? You know what I am. You know I'm a taxi driver who does his job every night. Why do you need those?
It's just an investigative.
Does that mean you found her? I hope you did. But obviously if you did, it's not the right way. Not if you need buckle swabs. It's the first time I've ever had peace, man. I was doing something good. I was helping people every night. Every night, all I do is help people. That's it. I help people more than you do.
True crime fans, stay in the know. Sign up for the free True Crime Network streaming account. Get updates on new series and save viewing history, all for free. Sign up today.
I didn't
I'm
give you
following
permission.
his,
I
I'm
didn't give
following
you
his
permission.
direction. Can you open your mouth? Ah.
That's a violation.
How is that a violation?
He just stuck something in my fucking mouth and
tried
took
to
something that
explain.
belongs to me.
I tried
Doesn't
to
matter.
explain.
That's not right. Especially from someone who got a phone call and went to try and pick up a girl that called me, and then when I got there, she's not there. And you guys put some shit in my mouth? You guys are fucking disgusting creatures.
It's a sterile future.
Shut up.
I'm now going to give you back.
Whatever. I hate you, man.
Give
my
you your
stuff
cash
back.
back. Your belt buckle, your 10 cents, and your...
You're a disgusting human being. So is your fucking judge.
There's a copy of this
I
at
don't
your
give a
residence. But I'm going to give you this copy
I
as
don't
well.
care.
Just in case
I
you
don't
want
want to hear anything else from you. You're a liar and you fucking steal. You stole my fucking DNA.
I'm
You
gonna
don't
count
deserve
your
it.
I'm going to count your cash out for you.
I don't like you either.
2 weeks after the DNA test and a month after Adrienne went missing, a woman told police her cousin heard a woman screaming in Tom Simon Jr.'s apartment. The cousin described it as the screams of a woman in desperation and said it sounded like someone was trying to cover her mouth. Police investigated, but Simon wouldn't let them inside. They couldn't get in touch with the woman who tipped them off.
I'd like to have a few more conversations with the cab driver, just to clear up some things, if you will. The cab driver has been cooperative, but there's still some unanswered questions that I'd like answered.
But there's no new evidence to link him to the case. No DNA recovered from Adrienne's remains. Her body hadn't even been found when police were questioning Tom Simon Jr.
He can be a big help in the case because he was the last person that we know to have contact with her. So when I say I had some unanswered questions, I mean, just having a conversation with him, hey, do you recall this, or can we work, talk more about that? It could be just that simple, like using his recollection to advance the case.
What have they asked that we haven't answered? Nothing.
Tom Simon Sr. owned the cab company. He was Tom Simon Jr.'s boss and his dad. He talked about his own theories right after Adrienne's disappearance.
Other cabs swing in and pick people up.
Back then, and when we interviewed him recently, he maintains another cab company might have picked Adrienne up.
It's very common with the competitive nature of this business for somebody to swing right by or scoop right by and say to them, you called a cab? And the person then thinks that that was their cab driver. That's important because one of the possibilities, that, as we see it, is that Tom got scooped on this particular ride. Any of us, including the cab company that can help with that, we want to do that, even though it might be uncomfortable.
But for a man who wasn't driving the cab, who had never met Adrienne Salinas, and was not the focus of police scrutiny, he appeared to stay very interested in the case. 1 month after Adrienne's disappearance, Tom Simon Sr. goes to Adrienne's neighborhood and posts this video to YouTube.
Well, it's Saturday morning, and we're at the corner just where Adrienne lives.
Narrating his own suspicions.
Heading south toward University. And there's something that concerns me a lot. Look at that building. Completely empty. She would have had to walk by this box, and this box. All of which somebody could hide in.
That video made Detective Akey wonder why Tom Simon Sr. would do that.
Who posted? I saw the video. I have the video. That's certainly unusual behavior, and why somebody does that kind of video is a good question, and that's something I would want to ask him.
These trash cans, and again that brick wall, and those bushes, and that brick wall, all which can lend themselves to coverage for somebody who wants to do harm.
I spoke to Tom Simon recently, and he said he made the YouTube video to be helpful.
I thought it would be helpful to document where she could have or may have walked, and I think it is helpful. Anybody who needs to jog their memory about what happened that night, they can take a look at that YouTube video, and they can see where it is possible that she could have walked.
And there's nothing more. So that's where the videotape will end.
Obviously, we've looked at his criminal history and are aware of that as well.
Akey says that criminal history was another flag. Tom Simon Sr. was most recently arrested after his girlfriend at the time said he had forced her to have sex and threatened to blackmail her with an alleged video in 2018.
Back down! Face away from me! Face away from me! Are you Thomas Simon? Go to your knees! You got radio.
Scottsdale police took Simon into custody at gunpoint.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
What's not in here?
The laptop cord, and cell phone. Everything else is in there.
And am I going to get some paperwork about that?
But officers never found any videos or pictures. Those charges were dropped, but Simon pled guilty to a lesser charge of disorderly conduct. Years before that, there were separate charges of running from the cops in Arizona, forgery, and trafficking in stolen property. The stolen property charge sent him to prison for 6 years. His wife filed for divorce while he was inside. He did not contest it. He said he never told his wife about his criminal past.
When you do things that are wrong and you make mistakes, you don't just pay for them that day, you pay for them for the rest of your life.
Tom Simon Sr. says his past should not be relevant and that nothing he's done in the past connects him to the Salinas case.
He is somebody that I am interested in for this case, yes, and for those very reasons. He is definitely somebody that I would myself or anybody investigating the case would probably want to talk about and at least explore.
Yeah. Has anybody done that?
No.
Wow.
An unwillingness on his end to have those conversations.
But Tom Simon Sr. says he's cooperated with police, and the Tempe police know how to contact him if they want. He says he hasn't been asked any questions since 2013. Simon also thinks police looking at his son was a waste of Tempe PD's time.
And there's not one time that they have requested anything of us that we have not given it to. I mean, I understand it's a difficult thing. You know, quite frankly, they don't have a suspect. And we want them to have a suspect. I think, quite frankly, that's the one thing that bothers me about is the amount of time that they spent on Tom. They don't know Tom. Because Tom doesn't have a bone in his body that could hurt somebody.
Both Tom Simon Jr. and Sr. live out of state. They were never arrested or charged. Tempe police said they have never been declared suspects of any kind. There's another possibility. A person police knew nothing about for years after Adrienne went missing. A man charged with 2 murders, who police suspect may have more.
You always meet the zombie hunter first, then Brian.
True crime fans, stay in the know. Sign up for the free True Crime Network streaming account. Get updates on new series and save viewing history, all for free. Sign up today.
Adrienne Salinas' body was found in a wash near the Superstition Mountains, 30 miles from where she was last seen. There was evidence her remains had been in the elements, mummified. Police have no idea how her body got that far away from her apartment.
Was she targeted by someone who was at that party, or was she just a random victim of opportunity by some unknown suspect who may not have ever committed a crime like that before?
Former FBI profiler Clint Van Zandt helped catch the Unabomber, helped profile Timothy McVeigh. We gave him everything we had on the Salinas case.
In this investigation that we're looking at that has gone on for these number of years, the official information to the public still doesn't suggest cause of death or manner of death. We know there are reports that the victim's hands may have been missing or her head may have been missing.
The autopsy makes no mention of Adrienne's head or hands, and no skeletal chart was included. What they found was mostly bones, mummified. Police won't say if her entire body was found.
That's a grisly fact, but that can drive us in 2 different directions. Direction 1 could say there may have been animal activity that wasn't reported in the autopsy. It may have been due to weather conditions, heat, cold, rain. On the other side, if we say, okay, that is evidence of a terrible murder, that someone intentionally removed the victim's hands and the victim's head and the victim's clothes, well, why would someone do that? Well, unfortunately, that's not unnecessarily unique. We've had many cases of homicides, of serial killers in this country who have done similar things.
It was as brutal as it was perplexing. 2 young women, 22-year-old Angela Brasso and 17-year-old Melanie Burness, found dead, their bodies mutilated.
But just as suddenly as those murders started, the crime stopped without an arrest. Until now. Tonight, after more than 20 years, a Phoenix man is behind bars accused of both murders. This is 42-year-old Brian Patrick Miller as he made his initial appearance in court today.
Not just mutilated, 22-year-old Angela Brasso had been decapitated. Her head was found 11 days later in a canal. 17-year-old Melanie Burness would be found in a canal a year later.
Some knew Miller as Zombie Hunter because of what appeared to be an old police car he had with those words on the back.
Undercover detectives in a ruse were able to obtain his DNA just this week. Our crime lab last night compared it to the DNA collected at the scene of these 2 homicides in 1992, and it was a positive match.
Good friends, acquaintances? My best friend is in Cleveland. Brian's my best friend in Arizona.
Keen Azaria knew Brian Patrick Miller as the Zombie Hunter. It was a character Miller would play at Comic-Cons and steampunk meetups. His car was decked out like a zombie hunter. There are photos of him dressed in costume. Azaria says he got to know Miller over the years and grew close to him.
He's won most of them through these clubs. You'll find Comic-Con, all this stuff. They're kind of disposable, not in a bad way, but it's just, they are. you find very few that you can actually grow a relationship with, and he was the one that knew most. And you know, we were birthdays over each other's houses. It just doesn't happen with every Comic-Con friend you get.
Long before Azaria ever met Miller, Miller had a troubled past. In 1989, when Brian Patrick Miller was a teenager, he underwent a psychological examination and found he was in the superior range for intelligence. Managing his emotions through fantasies and escapism, was emotionally immature. He had taken medication for depression and anger. The psychologist's report said he had problems dealing with sexuality. Miller was recommended for the Juvenile Sex Offenders Program. A few months after that report, Miller stabbed an 18-year-old woman with a steak knife near the mall. He later confessed to stabbing her because he wanted to know what it felt like. What did it feel like? Miller said it sent chills up his spine. Miller spent 2 years in juvenile detention until he turned 18. The murder he's accused of happened the next 2 years. In 2002, a woman said Miller had offered her a ride to work in Everett, Washington. She didn't know him. When they got there, she said Miller stabbed her in the shoulder and they fought for the knife before she ran away. But Miller claimed it was self-defense, said she attacked him. A jury believed him, and he was acquitted. Shortly after, he came back to Arizona with his wife and daughter, where he met Azaria.
The year before the arrest, our relationship really started off, and we started really, you know, talking about personal issues and his issues with women and stuff like that. And I never pried with him because I knew his level and I knew his limit, so I hardly ever pried.
Did you have any point where you were looking at him and going, something's not right here, but I don't really know what it is?
Pre-arrest?
Yeah.
No, we're on that safe, superficial level. Me, him, and many others there are very similar, and it's just an easy place to keep secrets. That's why I was so shocked. I was literally in shock on a 6 months easy, steady, the longest shock I've ever been in, and it finally tapered off after months.
So surreal, it's just hard to believe.
Boggles my mind, absolutely boggles the mind.
Somebody had mentioned the name Adrienne Salinas in the crowd, whispering. They were all huddled together, you know, and from then on I looked into it. I remember Adrienne. When you see her picture on anything, including a missing photo, missing poster, you just remember her. She's stunning, and it's like, do you remember the smile? It's like, yeah, I remember that face. I remember, and it was a big story. It was a huge story when it first happened.
True crime fans, stay in the know. Sign up for the free True Crime Network streaming account. Get updates on new series and save viewing history, all for free. Sign up today.
It was a friend's house. It was a housewarming party / pig roast. I remember the guy's name. I don't want to say because, you know, this guy probably likes his privacy, and I don't blame him. But it just so happened he was there, and he has, you know, Brian even had a notion for showing up early, helping out with things like that. So it just seemed like him that if he might have, it's just a hypothesis that just came to me, and I didn't want to shut up about it. I just, like, all right, well, it's starting to fit a little uncomfortable that he was there in Tempe the same day. It's just.
Well, you've got a woman about the same age.
You can. relate actually Salinas more to his the woman in Washington.
After a while, Azaria's crazy little theory didn't seem so crazy anymore. He sent a tip to Tempe police, telling them he thought they should check it out.
I sent that anonymously under the name K or something like that, and then his secretary or somebody sent me back and said he wants to talk to you. Can you give him your number and go forward with it? I said, what can it hurt? So I gave him my number. He called me while I was in Scottsdale and said, come on down. And we went at this big table, and we're sitting at this, it's like Dr. Evil's table. It was the strange, I've never been in this predicament before. It was so strange to me. And so he sits there, opens his manila envelope and slides this picture. I've never seen this picture of Brian before. Apparently it's maybe a Washington driver's license. It looked like a mugshot, I don't know. Is this the guy you wanted to clear the air, make sure it's who we're talking about? I said, yeah. And at that moment I was struck with a real big feeling of guilt, because this was fresh, and it was so odd even thinking about my friend doing something like this, much less tipping police off to it. I was trying to fight for Brian then, Yeah. I was trying to fight for his innocence, and it was a subconscious kind of battle I was doing there. Still am to a point, but it's just the roughest thing I had been through.
It's the same weekend, so he was at a party a mile away the same weekend. So if you consider he's under investigation for murder, and he's a mile away from our case, it's definitely on our radar.
But I started thinking, well, remember these treasure hunts that we used to go on? Brian used to go with me. Did you hear about that? All right.
I think I read something about that.
Okay, I worked, well, it started, I think, to say that. I worked for the Times when I met Brian. I was a cartoonist there. And they had these treasure hunts, and they'd give you these Dr. Seuss kind of clues. And I won twice, and Brian was like, we're all needing disposable money, and Brian's no more well off than I am. We both won. Like, all right, I'll split it with you, Brian. If you give me your car, let me take it. Well, the last one, about a year before Salinas went missing, was when I went looking around Weeks Wash, because there was this clue that said, look for the one with long arms, and everybody knew him in a cactus, and they already pointed out it was out west by that area, and they said, this is not a hunt for the weak. There's a lot of wordplay involved, and I said, Weeks Wash, let's go to Weeks Wash. He worked right down the path at the fairgrounds there, and if the shoe fits, or the GPS fits, and he's there where you just gotta take it where it leads.
So are police looking at Brian Patrick Miller? Yes, but not as an official suspect. Anyone who's charged with multiple murders over a period of years will probably show up on everyone's unsolved murder investigations. There's no DNA evidence to link him to Adrienne Salinas, only circumstantial evidence that he was in the same area around the same time. But they don't have any evidence to rule him out either.
He's under investigation for this case, yes. Another individual we'd like to have a conversation with and at least explore if he has any information into what happened to Adrienne Salinas.
We talked to Brian Patrick Miller's lawyer. She'd never even heard of the Salinas case. It says Tempe PD has never asked to speak to her client. We've looked at Adrienne's friends, boyfriend, the cab driver, the cab company owner, even the accused serial killer. And so have the police. And at the end, we're where the police are. What we have are fading memories and a fading picture of a girl who used to live here. The neighborhood has changed a lot since Adrienne went missing. Maybe someday her murder will be solved, and this stretch of road will finally be free of ghosts.
From the 9-1, switch that over, that's the young blonde. I was at the West Coast, now I'm in the East Coast. Saw you when